another good Saturday, but a win is always a great thing, especially on the road in the conference. As people would probably look at and say, just like I hear in the hallways, and I said when we were done, wasn't pretty, but I think we found a way to win. And the reality is we played good. We didn't play great. We didn't play terrible. There was moments when we played really well. There were moments when we did things that were very uncharacteristic of us, that you would say aren't very good. So there's a balance there. We gave up too many big plays defensively, which gave them an opportunity to stay in the football game, I think. Obviously penalties on both sides of the football, more so sometimes even the pre-snap penalties offensively, which made it much more difficult on us. But most importantly, and all in all, I think that because of the game and how it went, it challenged us in every phase of the game. So there was an opportunity where offense, there 2 or 3 situations where we had to have not just a drive, but we had to have points. And in every one of those situations, they went down and scored. We weren't down, but yet the game was within 4 points or whatever it was, and there were have-a-have-it situations. Defensively, the same thing. There was probably 4 or 5 times in the game when there were some opportunities they had to have it. We're losing the momentum. It's not slipping away from us, but it's becoming very close, and they're gaining the momentum and things. And we had to have big stops. We got, I think, 2 turnovers in those situations, which were huge for us. And then we had to have it situations with the field goal, with the special teams. I know we had one blocked earlier in the game, but that last field goal that we made was a had-to-have-it situation where the game was becoming really tight. They were within, I think, maybe 5 at the time. Whatever it was, I'm not positive, but it was a had-to-have-it situation. There was some kickoff where there were had-to-have-it situations, meaning we need you guys to give us an opportunity or to not give them any energy and momentum off of big plays, and they did a great job. Same way punt-wise. So, as you look back at it, you say, it wasn't the prettiest thing. We could have made it a lot maybe easier had we, played sharper in a lot of different phases of the game. But I think we were challenged. I think we grew. I think that's the best thing that going on the road can really do for you is no matter what the situation, you got to find a way to continue to battle and be successful. And I think Javon Hicks was probably one of those great examples. Here's a guy that gave up a big touchdown pass somewhere earlier in the game and had to respond. And he responded really well, obviously with 2 picks and a turnover, a fumble recovery, but he responded well in all phases. And I think that's where, those aren't things you can just, in spring ball and in winter conditioning, find ways to put guys in situations and put your team in situations where they have to really kind of find a way to gain and generate momentum, get it back when you've lost it. Those are the growing opportunities that you got to be successful in, especially in team sports, but in football more than anything.
Is there any one thing they were able to do in Houston's ability to push the ball downfield, or were there different breakdowns?
Well, they did some different things. Obviously, they had a situation at the quarterback position that we might not have been as aware of going into the game. Had some ideas. Just at what we'd seen, and he pulled up late in the North Texas game. So they came out, off of a bye week, which you always tend to get some different things with some, personnels and different things that made us a little bit, probably put us on our heels a little bit. We really played well until we, gave up big plays. And when we gave up big plays, we lost momentum of what we were doing. Probably a little bit of a shock situation. But I think all in all, their ability, their shots. Yes, it was a, so to speak, wide receiver at quarterback on the big first shot. I think some of the runs that busted out are probably the thing that, cause you as much anxiety than anything. A one-on-one shot like the one on Hicks, it's a one-on-one shot. They've got some really good wide receivers, and it's a really good throw and in good position. We just got to finish and make the play. And if we don't make the play, we got to at least get him down. But I think at times when those balls squirt through and we gave up 3 explosive runs, I think that's where even for me, look at it and say, okay, that's how they were able to move the ball a little bit more down the field and put us in some of those situations.
Is this game kind of a picture, specifically on kickoffs, kicking the ball short, and then I think you held them to under 18 or right at 18 yards of return, being able to stop them before the the 25? I mean, is that a plan, a strategy?
No, no. We'd like to go ahead and kick the thing through the end zone sometimes, but there was a win factor. And when that starts to happen, not only are you going to have, the ball's going to come up shorter, but also it's, puts a little bit in a kicker's head too. Is, okay, now I got to drive it. And all we say is, look, keep the ball in bounds. Give these guys an opportunity to cover. And I think that's where, I said in all phases of the game, there were some got-to-have-it situations. We gained the momentum in the first, we've all been there before. You lose momentum because you give up a 35-yard kickoff return, and all of a sudden you're right back to where you were. And those guys, they had to have it. We ran them down there. The ball wasn't going to go to the end zone. The ball ends up on the 8-yard line. And they get off the blocks. They finish the play. They make plays and keep the momentum in our favor, I think, late in that game.
You've got a run of games coming up here against teams that are 500 or worse. You've got a bye week in there. When you've got a portion of the schedule after, it feels like the schedule is kind of front-loaded. I know you preach one game at a time.
Yeah.
What's the biggest threat to consistency?
No, it's the ability to, no matter what, at the beginning of the season in camp, we talk about it. The only way you have a chance to be a great football team is to continue to grow. I don't care if you're front-loaded, if you're back-loaded, if you're middle-loaded. If you have consistency, you can continue to do the things that you do, regardless of your opponent. You have to play your best football at the end of the year. And we've played some good football. We've had some ups and downs, but we can't. I mean, this is a much better team than I think that a lot of people would give them credit for. And I know as a coach, you stand up there and say that, but no, I mean, they're beating Oklahoma State at halftime. They're in every single game. They've had some tough ones up. The SMU game obviously is what it is, but this is by no means a team where you'd say, they're 2-4 and they're maybe not the tops in the league. And I think our guys understand that, and that's why even knowing as a coach in the first 6 games, you're sitting there looking at some of the roads you have to go on and some of the maybe historic names that you had to play, and you did think, okay, we got to do some different things in camp so that we can be at our best earlier in the season. Where last year we were a little bit more backloaded, and we said, okay, now we can train ourselves through a lot of this camp and make sure that we got to be able to play our best ball, at the end of the year, and we have a chance in those first few games, to gain some momentum and things like that. So I don't know that it's any difference. We didn't ever talk to the team about anything different, whether it's front-loaded or back-loaded. Maybe how we approached camp was a slight bit different towards the end of camp. But really, we, from the whole time, we said no matter what, you got to play your best ball at the end of the year. And how do you do that? You consistently continue to build upon what you've done.
Aside from the momentum factor that came from points off turnovers, is there something on offense that you guys, a game plan you like to use when you get a turnover?
Take a shot, right? No, you play video games, that's what you do, right? You take a shot, right? As soon as you get the turnover, take a shot. But no, I think you have some ideas, you have some concepts to what you want to do, but I think you still got to have a feel and a flow of the game. And so there's some different situations and different things. I mean, regardless of where you get the football at, what the momentum of the game's like, what the score's like, really, what are they giving you? Because a lot of times is, that philosophy of, hey, as soon as you get a turnover, man, let's be aggressive and let's go. Well, the defense thinks about that too. So in a lot of ways, they might play you a bit different. So I think that whatever your philosophy is, when it goes into a game and whatever the situation is, you got to be able to adjust and adapt your plan. And I think, we had to do that this past week, and that's what I mean by, the thing I'm most proud of is our ability to handle those things. I don't just mean as a team, I mean as a coaching staff too. When we get those penalties, you talk about can be frustrating. We get a turnover or whatever it is, and all of a sudden you got 1st and 15, then it's 1st and 20, and as an offense you can lose your mind a little bit. And they were put behind the 8 ball because of ourselves, but still found a way to continue to move the football and put us in situations where we could keep control of the ball and keep the momentum of the game.
I know you don't care about the rankings that much, but being a top 20, 25 team now, do you talk to your team about having the target on your back and every team's best shot, especially when you have some guys that are, or some teams that are right around 500?
We'll bring it up today. I think we've said that maybe a little bit last week, but I don't know that it means a whole lot different if you kind of keep yourself in the same philosophy of what you've kind of preached from the time you start camp. When when things go awry and maybe you don't have a good first part of the season, I think you got to really start working some different things mentally on how to keep them and how to keep the energy. Where we're sitting right now, it's kind of fallen a bit in the line of that plan to say, hey, no matter what, you got to play your best ball at the end of the year. How do you do that? You have consistency. So I don't know that you would change, but that's sometimes that elephant in the room is you got to be able to address, so that we're not just wondering, what's going through these guys' head.
You've talked before about keeping guys invested, maybe guyounger guys especially who don't have as much chance to play. Are you using special teams for that this season, especially kickoff?
No, we always try. We're not. It's not a half. Special teams is not a halfway house for those guys that can't play on offense and defense. But it is a bit of an opportunity for some guys that don't get as much playing time on offense and defense, to show what they can do. And if you take a look at most of our special teams, there's going to be at least 3 or 4 starters on each one. I don't know that that's any different, whether it's kickoff or whether it's punt, whether it's punt block. It doesn't matter. That's the general concept that if you're a starter, you better be at least starting on at least one special team. But then your ability to mix in some. I think that's what I'm as excited about as we've gone through the first 6 games as anything, is not just that our special teams are playing well, but that you're seeing some young guys that are showing up and not just doing a decent job, but showing up, making plays on those special teams, which means there are opportunities to get more and more defensively and offensively. There's a future there for.
Do you use that, like, Quan Shepard, Justin Harris, they play well on special teams? Does that earn them more time on
Yeah.
defense?
I think I said the other day when there was a wide receiver who, when we went Sunday on to kickoff drill, and they're a scout team wide out, and they're over there getting a drink, and I said, well, if you ever think you're going to catch a ball, here at the University of Cincinnati before you run down on a kickoff, you're probably lost. So, whether you are on the kickoff team or not, you better get over there and start working on it. And I hope that it's a philosophy, it's a culture thing, that guys understand that. They don't look down upon the special teams. I mean, you try to put as much emphasis. I coach all the special teams along with Brian Mason, so we put an emphasis there, and we try to reward them guys and celebrate it. But it shows. Let's just say that it shows definitely, and I talk about it on Sundays too. I always put on a kickoff and a kickoff return from another team and say, okay, what is their philosophy? How do they really play? What is their attitude about not just offense and defense, but the special teams will tell you a lot about what kind of program you're playing.
Was Davion's absence due to injury or something else going on?
No, he had missed a few things, and we're getting him a little bit healthy, both physically and academically, and some things. He's doing a great job academically, but we're just kind of holding on, and it looks like he's probably a redshirt guy. And so right now that he's going to be a redshirt guy, we don't have to use him and put him in there. It makes it a little bit easier on us to not all of a sudden throw a guy in there at the last minute, because you can get in those situations in a game, and I'm not saying we would make a mistake, but all of a sudden a guy ends up in the game, and now we're in a really tough situation. So we're just kind of doing it. It's more for him, and a lot of the things that we're trying to do is just get all the things straightened and right, and if we have a chance and we can redshirt him, we will.
So did he respond well from where he was in August?
Yeah, and I think that's where right now he's doing a good job with us. Hey, this is how we're going to go about the redshirt. Here's how we're going to be able to use you. Here's what we're going to do. And, it's not easy. It's not easy on anybody, but he's done a good job with it.
You're halfway through the season, 5-1, you learn a lot each week about your team. What would you say is the greatest shift that you've seen for this year's team?
Right now, I think it's the amount of people that we're playing. I think that's why we have a better chance at the end of the year. At the end of the year last year, obviously we were playing really well, but those last 2 games, we didn't have a Mike Warren, we didn't have a Furr. There was a lot of guys that, just the amount of play and the things that we had done that, we were beat up and wore out. We've had some more injuries this year in camp and in the first, weeks than I think we've had in the first 2 years I was here. I mean, I'm talking season-ending injuries. We've had more of those situations. I think there's 7 of them right now. I don't know if we've had 7 in the first 2 years. But what I think we are is we're a healthier football team. I mean, Mike Warren hasn't run the ball over 30 times in one game. We've played an average of 22 guys on defense. Offensive line is, pretty much intact. We don't have as many guys playing there, but wideouts, there's a lot of guys playing. Tight ends, there's a ton of guys playing. That's where you're excited about where you're going. Young guys showing up on special teams, that the Trey Tuckers of the world, that all of a sudden they're going to find themselves, some more opportunities. That's when you start to say, you know what? This is not just because you're 5-1, but there's a lot of things going in the right direction.
Is it kind of just seeing your team grow and mature right in front of your eyes throughout the year?
It always is, and be able to handle a lot of different things. I think that we grow on the football field. Everybody does. It's, we got to continue to grow within the locker room, because, there's no greater, nothing greater to your program than really the energy and momentum that you guys have. And it's hard. I try to talk to those guys about 90% of college football is in this realm. There's 5% that are maybe off the charts in the upper end, and probably 5% that are in the lower end. But everybody else, there's a 90%. And what's going on within your locker room, and energy and momentum and focus is why you see so much difference in those 90% year in and year out. And it's not easy. But I think that's where the growth, especially throughout a season, is more important than anything.
What makes you different about getting more out of your players in that 90% range? How's your process?
It's called a coaching staff. It really is. It's we all get tied up into the X's and O's, but as we reminded ourselves this morning that our X's and O's are going to be fine. It's really what do those guys within your units, what do they see, what do they believe, what do they feel? And I think that's where you got to continue to make sure it's about them, and it's about getting the most out of them, as opposed to, what we do schematically, offensively and defensively and special teams. And I would say the greatest thing that for us to play above our talent level is what, a big part of our program. It takes a relationship in those unit rooms with the coaches, and they're the ones that bring out the best in those guys. And I don't mean just teaching them how to tackle and teaching them how to throw and catch, but teaching them how to handle all the things that are going to happen within a game, within college. That's how you continue to grow.
You mentioned Trey Tucker. When you look at the tape, is he as close to breaking one on tape as it appears on?
He is, and it's not just his kickoff return stuff. He made a really big play on the punt team too. I mean, we had a deep kick. He was more in this middle of the field, and he was the field side gunner against a really good return guy. And so things like that I can say that, well, that's coaching, right? You guys worked with him a lot with those tackle drills. No, he's at wideout, and I don't think we've done tackle drills with the wideouts very often, but I think he's got 2 or so tackles on punt and maybe 2 or 3 tackles on the kickoff. So it's confidence, not just for himself, but also us to continue to put him in those situations and give him as many opportunities to put his hands on the football as we can.
Did you see that stuff when you were recruiting him? Because he had the reputation as a speed guy. Those guys aren't often looked at as great.
It's hard. You believe, you think so. I'm not going to tell you why I really fell in love with him. It wasn't the 10-4 that he posted in the one of the meets his senior year. It wasn't his ability to win 3 events in the state tournament. They said he's like a focused. Might have had to do with his ability to wrestle, I think, early on in his career and his life. And his 2 cousins and best friends were phenomenal wrestlers that both went to Ohio State. And I said, if he's been around those guys and he's hung around those guys, and he's not just a track kid. There's something else in there, and we're seeing it now.
I know you're worried about what happens on the field with Tulsa, but just they're celebrating the 12-0 Sugar Bowl team this weekend. Coach Hugg's going to be back, a lot of those guys. What do you know about that team? And is it cool for you to have one of the best teams come back during one of your games? Yeah,
it's so hard during a game week. I mean, that we won't know what's going on. But I said it the other day that I don't know a whole bunch about their season in 2009. I'm not very good at following any college football team during a season. I actually don't like to watch college football because I just think about how to stop them and what they're doing, and my mind just races. And so the only thing I remember is we ended the season, because in the Big Ten you ended at Thanksgiving, and we got to sit around to watch that last game of the 2009 regular season when they played at Pitt, and which is obviously everybody knows about that game. And I watched and watched and watched that entire game and realized, but what people are saying is, hey, there's another team in this state that might be better than anybody. Was the first time I actually, being arrogant enough to be someplace else, realized, wow, those guys are really good. So that's the only real memory that I have of the 2009 season. But that's the only memory I have probably of any other team from 2009 on.
Would you have benched Tony Pike in the first half?
I would have benched him earlier than that.
Those that sound.
Bench him.
Any questions? Can you remember a weirder pick six than the B-right to penalty?
We've been working with some of that with the volleyballs, if you haven't seen us out there at practice. It's usually on pump blocks, but it looked like it was a nice set on a volleyball court. No, I actually thought it had to hit him in the helmet or something to go that far backwards, but I just want to make sure Perry gives recognition because he really didn't have to do much. And it just reminds us that there's a lot of other things that go into just plays that are made, whether it's down the field, whether it's interceptions, whether it's fumble recoveries. But ultimately, when you have those opportunities, you got to make them, and that's why the game looks a little more lopsided than it really was. You guys watched, it was back and forth and a lot of momentum. Not that we lost the lead, but that was a huge play at that time.
Coach, you're in year 3, 5-1. Looking at this season, looking at the state of the program, do you feel like you're right where you expected to be, or are you further along than you expected?
You just said it. We're in week 6. I got no other focus and other than week 6. I haven't thought one bit about where we are as a program or as a team. I look at 6 weeks in. This is the 7th week. Whatever it is that's going on within our locker room, and I can tell you this, you can ask me next week because we'll be on a bye, and you can ask the same question, and I probably will have no idea of anything other than what's going on at that time, in that time, and most importantly with our kids. So I feel like we're in a good place and going in a great direction in our locker room. And I think, that's the most critical time is during a season because there's no greater adversity, and it's not just wins and losses, okay, than what happens during a season. And I mean that by playing time. I mean that by recognition. You heard Nick Saban say it, right? Some guys out here, rat poison or whatever, I don't know. I don't watch a whole lot, but the most difficult thing and continue to progress your football program is where are the minds of your kids. And the hardest time is during a season. The easiest time is in the off season. The easiest time is in spring football because they're not worried about the playing time. They're not worried about the stats. And this is what's difficult. And where we're going and where we're headed and what we've got going on in that locker room is where we need to be.
You seem to have a special bond with Mike Warren. Can you describe your relationship with him, and what has he meant to that locker room?
He's huge. I mean, he's an energy guy. And, do I have a special? I don't know. I like hanging around him because, people that provide energy you want to be around, whether he's carrying the ball 35 times or not. He's a guy that provides energy on the practice field. He provides energy in the locker room. He provides energy during a game. He's a guy from that first class. So I think it is a little bit easier to have some of those relationships, deeper relationships, because you spent time with people's families. You know a little bit more about how they've, where they're from and what they've done. And it is in my, for what I do, I think it is more difficult to be as tight with a relationship with a guy if you've never been in their home. And I don't mean that against any of the guys that we didn't recruit. I just means we got to work a lot harder at knowing exactly what they've come from, how they've been raised, what makes them tick. Sometimes it's harder. It takes longer to get to know them, if you've never been in their home.
You spoke about keeping kids' mindsets focused on the field of the game as the season kind of goes along. Now with 6 weeks left and coaching carousel as it is every year, some of these jobs starts opening up. How do you keep those kids focused when your name inevitably becomes tied to some of these positions?
We don't, again, I avoid, I don't know, what these guys know or think or see. I think it's all about the actions you have towards them, and hopefully the great thing about being here for 2 years and going into this is the third year is you've built up some trust that, they believe in what it is that you do. Maybe not what you have to say, but it's how you go about your business. And, nothing that you're going to say to them, whether they're ranked in the nation or there's other talk outside, whether you're getting fired or there's other opportunities, nothing that you say is going to sink in unless they believe in you as a person. And the best way is not to have to say a whole lot, but it's by the way you've treated them, it's your actions, it's your consistency on a daily basis. And, those are the things, like you said, that you preach to your kids, and you got to do the same, whether you're an assistant coach, or the head coach.
How do you guys answer that question on recruiting trail? Like a parent might ask about you or Marcus or another person?
I think it's the greatest thing that can happen. People would use it against you, like, oh, these guys might leave. You know what? You better hope that we have an opportunity to leave. Because if we don't have an opportunity to leave, it means we're not winning. And you don't want to come to a program that's not winning. There's no energy, there's no momentum in a program. It's the same thing. You got to have trust and belief. And in recruiting, it's hard because you don't know them. But the first thing I say is, darn right. If we aren't winning and we don't have an opportunity and people aren't talking about us, I'd be careful coming to a program that doesn't have energy and momentum. Now, with that being said, I want you to know what's important to me. But I hope every year, some way, somehow, that we're being talked about, whether it's Coach Freeman, Coach Denbrock, Coach Brady, who does an unbelievable job. They better be talked about every single year because, wow, people are taking notice to what it is you're doing as a football program and a team.